Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not to Comic Book. This being the show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Cloak Dagger as well as the latest episode of iZombie. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time to start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you don't want to hear what I say about this week's episode of Cloak Dagger, you can skip to what I say about this week's episode of iZombie. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Cloak Dagger. A great episode. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break them down. Obviously, there's the whole situation with Ty. You know, Tandy's scared. She's calling Evita. Bridget shows up and everything because she saw the scene. You know, and that's the sad thing is you had that whole thing that the cops were saying. Because even, like, Bridget had to be like, yo, like, they're victims because he's calling them hook. Like, one of the cops is calling her them hookers and stuff like that. It's like, that's a little disrespectful. Quite disrespectful, but it's just because they're very jaded because they're like, oh, we shut this place down, doesn't matter, it'll be back up in another month or two. They just kind of become jaded, just being like, yeah, this is like, oh, you know, prostitution is the oldest, you know, racket or whatever, it's the oldest profession that basically you shut it down, it's just going to come right back up. It's like, it's almost, to be fair, kind of, it's just, I guess, the whole system being kind of very cynical and just being like, what's the point? Who cares? They're not even going to try that hard. It's even kind of looking at the victims, because almost being like, oh, they kind of signed up for this, even though we know that Andre pushed every girl that was there to that, just making them feel like they had nothing and no one else. So it's a whole thing, and I think that in itself is a big point that comes across in this episode because there's a lot of interesting things. Well, first of all, let's start off with everything with Delgado and Ty's mom. Now, that was really interesting. She has these files that can basically take down every corrupt person. She got all the information she needed, but the thing is, she can't turn it in herself because in it she'd have to admit where she got all the information. She got the information super illegally and stuff like that, so she needs Delgado to give it, but he's, you know, him being a priest, he's not held to the same standards. He doesn't have to tell, like, you know, he's able to keep confessions, so he doesn't have to tell the source he got the information from. Sad thing is when we find out through it all, because obviously he, you know, for him it's like he's no longer a priest and everything like that. But she does bring up something interesting because for him it's like Ty was his path to redemption after, you know, the drunk driving accident that he caused and everything. He tried to get redemption by becoming a priest. He thought, you know, Ty would be his way to that, and it's like I ended up pushing Ty away. I told him just to go, and in that moment, like, all this, so he blames himself. I mean, even his mom is like, no, we all weren't able to protect Ty, but now we can. And now it turns into a situation of he asked for her confession, and it turns out she killed Connors, which is sad. Like, understandably, Connors, all he did want was forgiveness. He did try. Like, he made some huge mistakes. Yes, he killed Billy. Yes, he framed Tyrone. And it's just, I don't know. Like, I think any parent in that situation, it's a complicated thing to just say like, is it possible to forgive? Yes, but when you've literally had years to fester on that, and then like he's the reason why you're about to potentially could lose your other son, of course, you know. So for her, she did that. I was kind of like, holy crap. I was like, the way she's making the confession and everything, you killed him, didn't you? And it's like, and especially when he went to the bathroom, turned on the lights, I'm like, she set up a murder room. That's some Dexter level stuff. To be fair, all she did was shoot him, but that's just to make sure no blood gets splattered anywhere. But still, that was hardcore. And it seems like she shot him twice, which is the same number of times he shot Billy, right? I think that's kind of potentially the whole point. You know, like I said, it's hard to say. You can understand where she came from, but for her, it's like she doesn't need a priest. If you're going to pray for anyone, like pray to God about Tyrone, all I need is a priest. I don't need God. You know, it's kind of like, I've done what I've done. Whatever happens to me, I don't care. As long as it meant saving my baby, the only baby I have left, and then I don't care. Damn my soul, you know? So that's definitely going to be interesting to see where that goes, because she crossed the line that even Ty questioned about whether he should or not. And I think, you know, she's okay with it now, but I think eventually that's going to weigh heavy on her, you know, and I'm curious to see where they end up taking her story with all of this. There's that side of things. Then you have, you know, Evita bringing up some very interesting things that basically women in the position of her aunt, you know, Mombay's, which is interesting. And like, Bridget's like, oh, is it kind of like how nuns are married to God? And it's like, kind of, sort of. And it's like, that's so interesting. So, you know, Tandy and Bridget go inside of, Ty to try and find him because he's obviously kind of stuck there. And I like that place basically, obviously it constantly changes to be what you need it to be, I love that he kind of likes candy. So, I forgot to point out like that this particular Loa that they're meeting there, who changes every time they see him, is married to Evita's aunt. It makes you wonder, are they married to multiple people or not? I don't know if that conversation came up whether or not that's the case. I don't think so. It's just kind of like basically a god and a human union like that, basically till death do you part, essentially. But I wonder, is it just because her aunt was in the position that she was in? Like, I think it's because if you have the sight, if you have those gifts and everything, you're the only ones who could do that. I don't know if any just normal person could do that. Because I was wondering if her aunt got her powers from marrying a Loa, but it seems like it coincides. It's like, oh, you had that ability, maybe something came up that called for her to have to marry a Loa. Or maybe it's just kind of like, maybe it was part of a ceremony. Either way, because Evita's situation's a little bit different, because her situation is like, she marries a Loa to make sure that Ty gets saved. But that's a whole thing in itself. I'll get to that in a second, but everything is very interesting to kind of, when you kind of break this all down. Obviously, everything with Tandy going to save Ty. Lo and behold, who's watching over him? Baron Samedi, which I'm like, man, I'm seeing you pop up in all sorts of fiction. Obviously, the first time I ever saw him was like Princess and the Frog. Obviously, that same version somewhat obviously pops up in the show Once Upon a Time. But it's interesting because more recently, he popped up in, I'm blanking on, American Gods. He popped up this season in American Gods. Interestingly enough, played by the same actor who played Bushmaster in Luke Cage. This show kind of has a connection because O'Reilly knows Misty and everything. So it's just interesting, like the comparison, because it's Marvel and Marvel, but there's even a deeper connection between characters like that, between Misty and O'Reilly. So it's like that. It's crazy, like when you actually break that down, like the degrees of separation between a lot of stuff. It just blows my mind. I didn't even think about that until now. But I thought that was kind of interesting. And now Ty's playing this video game, and it's like, basically Ty came here to get away from all his worries. And they nailed it. I wonder, did they hire a programmer to literally make that game for this episode? I really like because they cut back between live action and the video game. I thought that was pretty neat. It's literally them in there. And I love Tandy being like, radioactive heroin? Really? And he's like, come on, don't ruin this. And I love that. Like, it's cutting back and forth. It's like they're playing the game and everything, and then they get literally sucked into it. Like I said, you cut back between both perspectives, and I thought that was pretty nice. I like that. Obviously it's an arcade game, so they kind of it's a beat 'em up type of game too, which I thought was kind of neat. I even love Tandy kind of pointing out stuff. It's like, they're wearing the same clothes. I'm like, stop. But like little stuff like that, it's so funny because that's a video game thing. And then like she's also, and the people I took care of disappearing. What the hell is going? Obviously none of this is. But I love that. Like, she's breaking the fourth wall to a certain degree. It's like, come on. But I mean, that's video games. You don't think about that. But like I said, I just like them kind of going through different levels and stuff like that. And I think they did a really good job with the actual game itself. It's just kind of like you see like Tandy like shooting energy from her hands and also like throwing the daggers. Like obviously her like when she just summons like a bright light and uses that. Like she's using that in the game. Ty's like popping and teleporting all over the place, knocking people out. It's really good. It looks really good. I'm like, holy crap. That's why they have to showcase it a lot, because they probably spent some good time and money on that. So it's like, yeah, dude. I wonder, is that available somewhere? Is there just like, is that the only version of that? It makes you wonder, is that like a real copy of a game or something that exists that, just not everyone has access to? I mean, I am assuming not. I'm sure that had to be made specific for this episode. Still, that's trippy. The nerd inside of me. Like, I'm not the biggest beat 'em up fighter type of game person, but, that's not my lane of video games, but even I have to admit, that's freaking sick. But, Tandy telling Ty, like, it's like, this isn't real, let's get back to the real world. But even she's kind of getting the hang of it, and even Ty's like, yo, you're actually pretty good at it. She's like, no duh, It's like, she's like, I was never really big in that. Like, video games aren't my thing, but I think I missed out on something I could have been great at. But obviously the third level and the final level is going back to the motel, and you can tell it's shaking Tandy a lot because obviously like just everything about that, because it's a reminder of how Andre made her feel at that time, and just seeing all those girls there so lost, so hopeless, even her hope being dashed and broken. All of that accumulating, you can tell that, she's paralyzed at first, and it's understandable, but Ty's like, the fact of the matter is you don't have to handle this alone. The difference is I'm here with you this time, and I'm not leaving your side. And it's interesting, like when the time comes to face him, she leaves because she just couldn't do it. But once again, it's interesting when you break down why Ty's here. For him, it's like, this is a place where we can win, where we're out there. It's just almost like this continuous thing. It's like, no matter what we do, we always lose, and there's always consequences. Here, there are no consequences. We lose, we restart the game, whatever the case may be. But the fact is, out there, so much, you make the wrong move, and that's something he's dealt with this season. Like, he tried to do the right thing, and there's just consequence after consequence after consequence. It's like, I can't do anything right, and so much gets ruined. But if I stay here, I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to be caught up in the drama that is my life and everything that's wrong with it. But Tandy's kind of talking about the pain that comes with it and everything, because it's like, okay, so why did you come to the motel to save me? Because he was like, I couldn't imagine a life without you. And she's like, Andre literally showed me you dying because of me, and it hurt her so much. Because the fact is, she's like, if it means fighting 100 times, I'm fine with it. But fighting one time without you, I can never do that. It just, I love their bonds. Just like how tight knit they are. I mean, I always love that we always look at things in retrospect. It's like to think they started off where they were in season 1, and to see that they are here, because it's like they're the only ones that can understand each other. There's no one else in the world. That's their thing. I guess that feeds into the whole divine pairing situation. And Ty couldn't make the choice. He didn't know whether he was going to come back or not. But Tandy was like, if you decide to stay, then I'm gonna stay with you, because I'm not going to leave here without you. If that, but Ty never actually made the choice, because the choice was made for him by Vida, because she married the god, so they get booted out. Which, obviously, there's everything with her aunt and everything. It didn't click in my head that her aunt was dead. I was thinking, like, oh, her aunt's just unconscious, but then we didn't see her in the record, so I was like, oh, that's interesting. What's up with that? But it's like, no, Andre straight up killed her. And it's like, jeez. I didn't realize that at the time. And now Vita's in that situation. I'm like, no, I don't want the site. I don't want to be this person. It's just like, I'm going to go to college, and I'm going to go to medical school. She's like, oh, that was you being selfish. She's like, I'm entitled to be selfish. Essentially because of this lifestyle, because of who her family is and everything. It's like, she was always kind of felt, probably like weird, a bit of an outsider. But it's like, the fact of the matter is, you always have a choice. But at the end of the day, no matter what choice you make, you gotta keep your head held high. But she has to marry Aloha if she plans on saving Ty. And maybe without her, maybe Tandy wouldn't have been able to convince Ty to come back. Like, he might have actually stayed. Who knows how things would have played out. But he was on the verge of death, and Avita cares heavily for him. They both do. So they were trying to save him their own ways too. So who knows how things would have played out if she hadn't done what she did. Then there's also like the whole thing with O'Reilly. I love that. Was it Papa Lamba? And he's like, oh, you gotta pay a price, and she hands him spearmint and gum. He's like, spearmint? I love that. It's like, you're Aloha, you're a god, and you're being choosy. But I guess it's like, you like your chocolate, so in particular sweet. So it's like, I guess I can get behind that. I understand, but still, that was just funny to me. But obviously her and her other side kind of talk, and it's kind of interesting because even O'Reilly kind of points it out. It's like, your perspective on things, you kind of look at things in a more negative way, and you just attack, because it's like the whole conversation. I like that. It's like the two different sides of her representing, like, oh, how the different perspectives they have on a simple memory. It's like, oh, our dad takes us to the mall all the time. Oh, he did that just so he can, like, flirt with a clerk or whatever. But then, like, O'Reilly's like, well, even if he did, that's okay. Like, the fact of the matter is, he's taking care of a whole bunch of kids by himself. The fact is that, it hadn't been that long since mom died. Like, it's okay for him to kind of, try to be a little happy, So it's like I said, it's like, you look at things from this negative point of view, and I thought that was kind of interesting. And I liked her being like, but the fact of the matter is, if we're going to catch this Andre guy, we got to work together, essentially. She's like, I'm not going to be in a situation where next time your boyfriend dies, I come out, or the fact is that, you get a little road rage. I think that's kind of interesting. I guess you could make the argument, like, that bar scene after, the next episode after Fuchs had died, her kind of, that led to her getting beat up. I guess you could make the argument that was Mayhem coming out back then, but I thought that's kind of interesting because now it's like, I'm gonna let you take control a little bit. It's like, listen to me at least a little bit. Like, we should kind of try to find that balance. So for right now, she's taking the wheel. Now I think that's going to be interesting. That's what I brought up like last week's episode, I think, of like when they do come together, like how's that situation going to happen? Is it going to be like they're like Mayhem and Bridget are permanently one again, but we're probably going to see points where they kind of switch back and forth. It's, it's almost going to be like a dissociative personality disorder type of thing. It seems like that's kind of almost like what it's going to be like, but like two dominant personalities. What makes you, I doubt it's going to be that situation that makes you wonder, like, will there be others that end up popping up? I doubt it, but still, that's going to be interesting to see. Like, I mean, for now, we see her in control, but I'm sure there's going to be moments where O'Reilly's in control. I wonder, is it going to be on the flip of a dime, where it's just kind of like O'Reilly's like herself at one moment, and then she turns into Mayhem in the flip of a hat? Like, or like, what's that going to look like? Or is it just going to be long periods of time? I'm sure it's going to be, because for now she's in the driver's seat because they're going after Andre. So maybe once that's done, maybe going forward they set more boundaries on how this whole thing operates. I have no idea. It's going to be interesting to see. But we do see her kind of burning the motel and just kind of going like, okay, Andre's kind of had his fun done what he's done, but no more. And Mayhem's on the trail now. So there's that. Then there's everything, with Andre and Leah. It's sad, because like Leo's like, trying to take care of him and everything. He's like, I need a little bit more. Obviously his migraines are coming back. She's like, no. And then you see the hypocrisy behind it. It's like, oh, you're fine with him doing it with other people as long as it's not you. Because she's like, I think. And that's the sad situation about it, is because Leah was someone that he took advantage of. The fact of the matter is, through that pain, it's like, oh, she was reborn and everything. He helped her and everything. But I'm sure there was a part of her that was actually a little alleviated by the fact is, oh, he's not going to do that to me anymore. He's going to do it to other girls. He doesn't need to do it to me. But he does it and ends up killing her. I'm curious, is it just he outright kills you because that pain, like, or is it the pain he causes you drives you, like, it literally put so much pain on your body that, it sends your body, like your body literally dies from the shock of it. It makes you wonder, is that what that's saying? Or does he outright just straight up kill you because it's like, oh, you're no longer necessary? Is that what he did to Evita's aunt? Is that what he did to Leah? Either way, it's kind of sad that her story ended up playing out like that. Like I said, because, I called out the hypocrisy behind it, but like I was also saying, at the end of the day, she was still a victim in all of this too, so it's sad to see things play out that way. We do know now that he knows how to open the door in that place too, because for him it's like, oh, he recognizes it as music. Those points on his Veve were music notes, and he starts playing it. He's like, oh, da, da, da. So obviously that's going to be him becoming a god and everything, so probably going to increase what he's able to do. It might be a situation of him kind of being able to do it to multiple people at once. Maybe he doesn't even have to touch someone. Maybe he could be far away and kind of alleviate his pain by making people drown in theirs, And obviously, there's a lot of pain going around him in different regards, because obviously Evita is dealing with, like, well, this new circumstance. What that necessarily means for her and Ty, we don't know. But I doubt, like, her and Ty could ever have a relationship because of her marrying Baron Samdi. But we'll see. I'm sure gods are very, like, and they're kind of assholes, so it's probably going to be a situation of, like, oh, no, you're mine, no one else's type of thing. Because a lot of stuff depicts gods as very, like, kind of, oh, you're my property type of thing. Whether somebody's like that or not, we'll have to wait and see. But on top of that, Tandy comes back home. She sees, the place is a little junky, beers open, pills, and it's like her mom's kind of spiraling again. Her mom was doing so good, but obviously Tandy's going to blame herself because it's like, because of what I said to my mom about the whole, like, if someone's abusing you, you just leave. Once again, things aren't that easy, but obviously, like, where Tandy's mindset was at the time, she said some stuff that I'm sure now she wishes she could take it back. So it's that plus a combination of everything she went through. Like, Andre, still terrifies her. There's still that pit in her, like, probably, I'd say, like a pit in her stomach, from fear, and, Ty's there to kind of console her, and it's like, don't worry, we'll catch him. So I'm very interested to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how this all ends up playing out. And now moving on to this week's episode of iZombie. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I love that there's that whole situation where Liv has to choose between which brain to eat, either Gulliver's or Nancy's, which is just interesting to me because it's like, oh yeah, like it comes down to like a flip of the coin, but she ends up eating Nancy's, and I love it. Nancy, and Gulliver were dancers and stuff like that, and Liv's feeling it. I'm like, I love it, because I'm not much of a dancer myself, so I kind of like relate to Ravi a lot in this episode. He's like, tell me I don't have to dance, because I love it. At first she's like, oh Clive, come on, we could do it, go undercover, and just like, oh, it'd be so much fun. But he's like, yeah, I've already started interrogating people, so they'd already know it's me. And she's just like, well, I thought it'd be something we can do together. It's like, it's almost sweet because you're like, oh, she wanted to work on a case to kind of use as an excuse to dance, but also hang out with her partner and everything. I love that. But ends up bringing Ravi into it, even though Ravi's like, no, I can't be the one that has to do this. I don't dance. He's like, if I need to, I could freestyle a little bit, but not good. And I do love that throughout the episode, they put on that little montage of like Clive helping him dance, because it's like, yo, Clive can, cut a rug. It makes you wonder, like, in Malcolm's case, Malcolm Goodwin, did he already know how to dance, or was that something like everyone had to learn? Like, did him, Rose McIver, as well as Raul Coley have to learn how to dance for this episode? I'd like to think so. I think it'd be pretty dope if they had to, because maybe it'd be something that they walked away from this episode being like, oh yeah, I kept retained a little bit. I don't know, it's just something kind of behind the scenes I would love to kind of know about this episode. But I thought it was kind of neat that Clive, because Clive doesn't seem like but to be fair, like, you learn so much about Clive. Like, the fact of the matter is, he was kind of, it seems like D&D, but lo and behold, like I said, him being super, super into D&D, I love that. So that's a whole situation. So I love the dancing and stuff like that. And I love, it's like they're celebrating because it's like, oh my God, he did it. And then Dale walks in and she's like, yeah, I came to ask you about my John Doe. And Ravi's giving her answer and she's like, okay. And she's like backing away, and then they go back to celebrate. You did it. Oh, I did it. I love it. It was so good. It's such a good dancing montage of seeing him getting it little by little, screwing up here and there. But it was nice to kind of see that be a part of the episode. Especially considering the fact that he was so adverse to it. And I love that even later on, he's like, you know what the best part it is? I don't have to dance, not dancing. And then Liv was like, I thought the best part of it was us spending time together. I love that. That's what because this is for her, it's all fun and everything, because it's like, all the fact of the matter is, at one point she's getting pissed at Ravi because Ravi's wanting to focus more on the case. She's like, no, we're here, let's dance and stuff like that. I love that. I do like it when, when the time came, because obviously Ravi's kind of nervous. He's like, oh my God, look at all these people. But like, Liv is like, we don't have to win. We just kind of got to do this to, kind of go out there, basically almost kind of have fun. And I thought that was kind of neat. And, and they were kind of going at it and just doing their thing. And I love it that Liv kind of had a vision, so she walked away. And so Ravi does what Ravi does. He improvises. He went freestyle, slapped his butt, and then started flossing. Because it's so sad, because Clive had started recording it first. He's like, yeah. He's so proud. The moment Ravi started freestyling, he put the phone down and being like, you could tell he was so disappointed. I just love it. It's so good. I love it. I wonder, is that everyone's go-to dance move? It's like, I don't know what to do. Floss. Either way, it's just incredible. Once again, just showing you just how much Fortnite has permeated everything. I mean, to be fair, the dance existed before Fortnite, but still, I'm sure that's kind of a legal issue on its own. I definitely know it's a legal issue all on its own, but nevertheless, it's just interesting to think about. It's actually kind of sad when it's all said and done, because, like, Gulliver and this dude Ronaldo, they were together. They were in love and everything. But then Nancy came in and she kind of broke that up. It's kind of sad too. It's like, oh yeah, he's called Triple Nipple. And that's interesting. And Clive's like, really? I thought that was like a mole or something like that, because they were trying to find, because there was like someone being like a freak of the group or something like that, of like their swim team or whatever. So he's trying to figure out by that. It's like, oh, it's got to be this dude because he's got so much damn hair. But it's like, oh yeah, this dude because of the triple nipple. So that's interesting, which is funny because it's on the CW and we're talking about nipples, triple nipples, in fact, because let's not forget about Gary. Does Gary, now that I'm sitting here thinking about from Legends of Tomorrow, does he still have his third nipple even though he switched sides? I think he does. It's something I didn't even think about. Nevertheless, I'm going off on a huge tangent. I do apologize. But sadly, Ronaldo ended up killing himself because he wasn't trying to kill Gulliver. He just wanted to get Nancy out of the way. Now, whether that was outright to kill her, I mean, to be fair, he was using cyanide, so it kind of seems like that's the case. But, because of everything between them, obviously, like, he ended up drinking it. Gulliver ended up drinking it too. So Ronaldo kind of ended things this way, I guess. And it's just, there's no happy ending to the case, I do love that Ravi does show up at the crime scene in his dancing outfit. It's like, you literally came here straight here. You didn't even change at, the place. And he's just kind of like, no. And Liv's like, okay, so did we win? Obviously joking. And so it makes you wonder who did win. I love that though, because obviously this is kind of a step to that, TV show that got. They referenced it this episode too, but the TV show that someone had asked they could leave to go be on the TV show. It's like, I love that it's kind of coming back up. I love little background things like that, like gets mentioned here, and obviously it got mentioned before, but now here it is, kind of being the major part of a case. I mean, not the TV show itself, but kind of leading to get into the competition to be on the TV show. It's kind of interesting because Lars was trying to leave to see his mother's funeral. I was like, oh, and Ravi had to come up with a BS reason of why he wanted to do it. He's like, oh, I just want to be on TV. Even Tina's reason was she was going to go be a dancer for Cardi B or something. I was like, oh, that's pretty dope. I like little references hey, pop culture that I can understand, so. But it wasn't just that in this episode. There's a lot of other interesting things too, like Clive going to the baby classes with Dale. I love it. And he's taking notes, got his arms wrapped around her. It's like, oh yeah, basically be the light, put out positive energy and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, writing it down and stuff. And lo and behold, who walks in there? Michelle, who's super pregnant. And it's like, Clive is like, what? And Dale's like, come on, let's go over and say hi. He's like, yeah, and he's trying to say stuff, and it's like, oh, small world, and it just, things are super awkward. And it's like, and I love Dale being like, okay, he's like, yeah, things kind of, we haven't token, he hasn't talked to Michelle since they broke up and she got transferred to Vice. And she's like, oh, you mean the same? Okay. And Dale breaks it down. She's like, okay, so you had sex with her the next day, you dumped her and then proposed to me. And he's like, well, yeah, it sounds pretty fast when you say it like that. She's like, oh, what do you mean? In the order that things happen? And it's like, yeah, it's kind of like, oh, we can look back at that. That did happen in that order and happened that way, didn't it? That looks super, super shitty. Because wasn't that the whole conversation too of oh, basically it almost seemed like a he hit it and quit it type of thing of oh, we just had sex. And it's like there was extenuating circumstances. It still kind of seems asshole-ish. So now Clive has to ask the question of who's the baby daddy? Is it me? Which she's like, honestly, I don't know if it's you or my ex Shane, which she doesn't want to do a DNA test right now because for her it's which I never knew that, apparently it could be potentially dangerous for a baby, which I'd never heard that before. But I guess, depending, I never actually know the process in which they go. I assume they go in kind of drawing blood or DNA from the baby like that. I would assume blood from the baby. I never really thought about it like that before, but it was just, I guess that's just kind of the process for it. But nevertheless, so now, Dale's obviously kind of upset by it because it's a whole complicated thing, and she's like, so have you talked to her about it? He's like, no. And it's she's like, okay, I'm gonna have to. But he's like, it doesn't feel right because for one, it's the fact of the matter is we are in a situation where literally everyone is celebrating the fact that we're having a baby. Michelle doesn't really have anyone. She doesn't have a partner. She doesn't have the whole unit kind of backing him up and being yeah, kind of their support group essentially, Michelle doesn't really have anyone because it's the only reason why we want her to get that DNA test is just to prove that so that I'm not the father. That's what we're kind of hoping for. And for him, it's it doesn't feel right to kind of be doing that, especially because we're kind of in a good, happy place. We got each other. We got everything. She doesn't really have anyone in her corner. But lo and behold, Dale kind of took that to heart. So when Michelle needs, a partner in the birthing class, she steps up, and it's it's super awkward, but I do appreciate that they're there for each other. I'm curious to see how this whole situation plays out. I kind of get the feeling obviously it's going to be treated because Clive, there's a chance that might be his baby, so he's going to take responsibility. Obviously, him and Dale are going to find their way to kind of make this whole situation work out. It's probably going to be an awkward situation where they both go into labor at the same time. I think when it's all said and done, we're going to find out that it's not Clive's baby. I think it'd be kind of neat if it was Clive's baby. It'd be a whole complicated thing of... because the sad thing is it complicates his relationship with Dale. But if they can find a middle ground, if they kind of work everything out, I just didn't expect the storyline to turn in that regard. Because they brought Michelle up and everything, but then it's oh crap. Because I was almost thinking it's going to be wait, you just think it's your baby? I thought he kind of be kind of subtle about the entire episode, but it's no, Clive outright asked, because if he didn't, Dale probably would have been pissed. But the fact is, he outright asked, and it's I don't know. So it's going to be interesting. Like I said, my mind is leaning more towards it's not Clive's baby. But maybe even when it's not the case, maybe he'll still be there to kind of help Michelle and kind of support her. Maybe her ex-boyfriend Shane's going to come back into this, because for her, it's like, yeah, after our breakup, her and Clive, it's like, the fact of the matter is, I thought, kind of made some mistakes, kind of lost it a little bit, went back to my ex and everything. So I think she talked about the fact he's in Cleveland, so I don't see that happening, especially with Seattle being the situation it is right now. So that's probably most likely not going to happen. Potentially, we'll see. But there's always, like I said, the possibility that it is Clive's baby. But I think, like I said, they're making the middle ground situation now. But I think that might be something we potentially see going forward for the rest of the season, of like, the complicated nature of like being there for Dale and being there for Michelle, and just trying to balance that whole situation. Probably going to get super complicated, but we'll ultimately have to wait and see. Now, another element to this episode is everything at the schooling system. Obviously, like, we see one of Jordan's brothers getting checked for license. Like, that's what the whole thing is. Obviously, Fillmore Graves shows up there with guns. Turns into a whole debate of like, you can't be doing that, because obviously they're like, we know this whole thing is just to check for zombies. And it's like, basically, because zombies are fortunate in the position of like, as long as they dye their hair and tan their skin, you can't tell them apart from humans unless no. And so it's a situation of, it gives them anonymity, because that way they're protected in a very public place. And, in this particular case, some kids try to reach for the guns off of Fillmore Grave agents, and it's a whole situation, because they'd already made some remarks about like, we're going to gobble up these kids or whatever, and now it's turned into a whole thing, because the video went up and, it got shown to Peyton. The parents and teachers, the faculty, are kind of telling her to handle this certain thing. She's trying to get in contact with Major, but obviously Major's dealing with a lot of stuff too. So Peyton kind of comes in there. I thought it was kind of sad. I was like, I was kind of scared for a moment, because obviously they're butting heads. Because Peyton's like, the fact of the matter is, you're too busy to answer the call. You would know the fact of the matter is, one of your people, one of the Fillmore Graves people was like, going to gobble up kids. He was like, wait, what? Because he hadn't heard that. And so like Peyton was like, the fact is, you're too busy to pick up a phone, to talk to me about this situation. Maybe you're not the right fit for this job. But then obviously, he snaps on her and being like, you know what that whole lice thing is all about? That's for them to find out who's a zombie, so that they can kind of lock zombies up and stuff like that, and even going as far as being like, why my people had their guns up like that? Because one of the humans reached for one of my people's sidearm. And it's like, I didn't see that in the video. So it's like, both of them kind of obviously representing both sides. He's trying to keep the zombies in line. She's trying to keep the humans, who are very like zealous, in line and stuff like that. And it's kind of sad, because now these two friends are kind of opposite sides of this whole situation. But Peyton did look into it, and it's like, basically the school is kind of segregating zombies and humans, kind of putting humans all in certain classes, even students who don't do that great, putting them in gifted classes to subtly try and make that happen. But it's like, no, segregations from humans and zombies, that's against the law here in Seattle. So it's like, stop. And obviously, like, you had those kids, those humans, picking on Jordan's brother, and he just kind of snaps, and he's just kind of like, leave me alone or I'm gonna kill you. The fact is, you want to look at us as like monsters. Humans are the monsters, because let's not forget, it was a human that killed his sister, And this is actually Major's first time actually meeting them. Like, Jordan had referenced them before, and he's like, the fact is, I know you guys, because he never met them, but it's like, Jordan talked about you guys all the time, And I thought it was kind of nice that like this whole situation brought Peyton and Major together, because like for Major, it's like, yeah, I kind of lost it, kind of got caught up in my own situation, and kind of started to think like I'm the only one that had a sucky job in this situation. It's like, no, both him and Peyton literally have the worst jobs under these circumstances. It's just, it's not good, because that was something even Jordan had referenced before. It's like, I think you literally have the worst job, and then it cut to everything that Peyton kind of has to deal with. So both of them kind of in the same situation, kind of representing, like I said, the different groups, while also kind of, because they're both trying to keep the peace. They're trying to make this whole situation work on both fronts, And it's sad too, because one of the siblings was like, oh yeah, let me join Fillmore Graves so I can kill humans. And then, they get dropped off, with Liv, and Liv's it's almost kind of become like a show. Like, her as Renegade, I think she's doing a lot more than just bringing people in and kind of, scratching them to heal them and everything. It's all, it's not just about, because her group is a representation of both humans and zombies. And you know what? It's something they brought it up last season, but I guess I just didn't remember it until, the boy Oliver had brought it up. It's like, oh yeah, like, he got shot to death. He took like the whole situation with Baron. It didn't click in my head last episode about like, all right, he did just get shot, so he wasn't even a zombie. So I was like, wait, it didn't even click in my head last episode. I think I'd completely forgotten about the fact is all the coyotes are, humans. It makes sense in the grand scheme of things, but it's like, I think that obviously that was a thing last season, but I completely forgotten about that until they referenced that. And that's kind of good because that kind of shifts Jordan's siblings like perspective, because they were thinking like all humans are evil and stuff like that because of the humans they were dealing with, but now they're like, oh wait, there was a human helping out zombies like this, kind of being part of Renegade's group and everything. Like they're risking everything to kind of bring people in here, knowing that these people are going to be turned into zombies and stuff like that. And I think it shifted their perspective, and what that means for them going forward, I don't know. Because obviously I think it's going to be like, this group is going to be like the next generation of zombies and stuff like that. So they're going to look at humans as like, no, not all humans are bad. Just like not all zombies are bad. That they're just bad people in general on both sides. So that's definitely going to be interesting going forward. Obviously, like I said, we still got the whole situation of like bad, zombies, bad humans, I meant to say. All around, because at the end of the day, like, it is a situation that like everyone is there kind of keeping like a checks and balances with each other, because even that dude who was part of Fillmore Grace is like, oh, we'll eat you. Like the other person that was there, she smacks him, she's like shut up, because she's one of those people that, I think she's the same one from last episode that was kind of agreeing with the way Major wants to handle things of like, we don't want to scare humans, we need to kind of be a part of the community and everything. That's the whole point. So it's just a crazy, wild situation, and it's an aspect that I feel like we never really saw at all last episode, like the layers upon like the litigation and just how things work in this new society, this new Seattle with zombieism and stuff like that. I feel like we never deep dived into it, but now we're kind of dealing with a lot of the logistics and stuff like that behind this whole situation. So that's definitely very interesting. I'm curious to see where all this ends up ultimately taking us going forward into the next episode. Especially with, Liv taking in all these orphans and stuff like that. I'm curious to see what that ends up, coming about. Like, are there going to be people who become zombies that Liv is trying to set up to kind of take these kids in? Or is she going to be kind of like mother hen to all of them? I'm curious to see what ends up happening in that regard. Once again, like, this all plays into that. All depends on how Liv's story ends up playing out at the end of the series. I don't know, just some of the stuff kind of floating through my head during this whole situation. So I'm very excited to see what the next episode has in store for us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.